weißt es nicht, a viele du allein, noch sein dem Tor, wo's ich bin in der Stadt. Geht die Bänkschaft da über alle Gassen und alle Beine seinen grünen mit einem Sod. Keiner weiß es nicht, a viele du allein, als wo ich so nicht gehen, frag ich mit sich dein Blick, wie a Kamee mit an eingekritzten Spruch, der Spruch zum Gorn, also no und also weit von dir.
Okay, so welcome everybody to this instalment of What Does the Future Sound Like? We're really lucky to be joined by Polina Shepherd. Gosh, Polina, how do I describe you? Concert pianist, klezmer musician, choir instructor.
Well, on my website it says performer, composer, educator.
Performer, composer,
perfect. Something like that.
We'll go with that. So thank you so much for being with us. It's really nice to have you here to talk to. I wondered if we might just start, because for our audiences that don't know your work very well, whether you might just tell us a little bit about how you got into performing Jewish music and klezmer music.
Okay, well, I'm originally from Russia. I was born in Siberia, and I lived most of my kind of formative years and my childhood in Tatarstan and Central Russia. And you know, in Russia we used to get these passports aged 16, and in our passports we had to put a line of our ethnic background. So I had to choose between Russian, Ukrainian, and Jewish because of my grandparents' various whatever was in their passports. And my parents talked me out of putting Jewish there because what if we have trouble and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I started asking questions at the age of 16. And then, you know, they were happy to share with me what means what. And Russian, of course, is easy being in Russia. But what's Jewish? What is it? And then I was, since the age of 15, I lived separately. I was studying in Kazan, in the capital city of Tatarstan, that republic in Russia. And I was lucky to live in a city where we had a Jewish band, the klezmer band, one of the two first bands since Perestroika. And I just went to their concert, age 16 and a half. My father came to visit me. We went together, and I just fell in love with this music. And shame I didn't write Jewish in my passport, but I still decided that that really connected with me on a deep level. So then I joined the youth club, the Jewish youth club, and then I was accepted into the adult ensemble in a couple of years, and I started performing and you know, touring the former Soviet Union, being in a klezmer band.
Wow, so it literally kind of through music, the exploration of your Jewishness starts.
Oh,
That's
yeah, very
incredible.
much.
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah.
Wow. So when I was thinking about talking to you, I thought about this item that we have in our collection at the museum here, which I don't know, I hope you're not offended that I thought about a typewriter when I when I thought about you. I'm just going to share my screen so we can have a look at the photograph of it, because it's a really unusual typewriter. So it, I think, see if you can see that. So it's a typewriter where you can type in English or in Yiddish or in Russian. So it's kind of made for Polina. I feel like we should give it to her.
Is it plugged into the computer?
And it's got this amazing story. So it was owned by a man called Simon Mazel, who was a printer who lived in Manchester, and he printed pamphlets in the kind of early 20th century. He was part of the early Zionist movement here in Manchester. He also wrote Hebrew poetry, I realised, which I didn't know, so I need to explore a little bit more about his poetry. but he was the president of the first Zionist association here. And he, at one of the Zionist congresses, he met Chaim Weizmann. And when Weizmann came to Manchester in 1904, it's Massel, who this typewriter belonged to, who met him from the station in Manchester, and they became friends. And so this typewriter was used to produce pamphlets in Russian and in Yiddish for newly arrived migrants to Manchester. And it's interesting because quite a lot of the established Jewish groups or Jewish communities here were actually really wanting to be anglicised and wanting new migrants to learn English as quickly as possible. And the socialists really, quite a few of the different socialist groups here, they particularly created materials in Yiddish and in Russian to try to kind of bring migrants to their cause, I suppose, but also as a sort of anti-assimilation process. Yeah, so it kind of it made me think about the different languages that you perform in, and I was wondering, particularly in your composing, whether what the decision-making process is there about whether to compose in using Russian or using Yiddish or in English or any other language, really. How do you go about it and think about it?
It's interesting because when you basically, you know, some melodies work with certain texts just because of their sound, but when you go finer into each language and each culture, there are specific things that are better expressed in Russian culture or better expressed in the Yiddish culture. So, and sometimes I just think purely practically, I need an upbeat song for my next Yiddish concert, so then I write something in Yiddish. And I've started mixing languages as well. Okay. So that it's very individual for each song. And of course, there are musical stylistic details that work in certain styles. So I think about these mixtures and what expresses my mood at the moment best, or what would work for my choir, for the groups I sing with best. And of course, I studied Russian music, I studied Yiddish music, and I like to be within these traditions. Within the both cultures, I want to be within these traditions and express traditional things that are traditionally expressed in music, like Russian heart-tearing feelings about separation of like a couple that love each other. But then we have a Yiddish side of this. In Russia, we would have these separations because of the Tsarist army, because of arranged marriages. And then when you look at Yiddish culture, we have the same subjects, but expressed in a slightly different way, in a less outgoing, emotion, more kind of introverted and more kind of, just the way, the shine of it, the color of that expression will be different. So I just like to stay within that, culture, within that style.
Oj, mein Teiere, Winter ist gekommen. Oj, fahre waschig, viele Sonne wie der Sommer. Oj, mein Teiere, Winter ist gekommen. Oj, fahre waschig, viele Sonne wie der Sommer. Der Winter ist gekommen, der Schnee schüttet. Wir sitzen in der Zimmer und singen ein Lied. Der Winter ist gekommen, der Schnee schüttet. Wir sitzen in der Zimmer und singen ein Lied. Oj, mein Teiere, Winter ist gekommen. Oj, fahre waschig, viele Sonne wie der Sommer. Oj, mein Teiere, Winter ist gekommen. Oj, fahre waschig, viele Sonne wie der Sommer. Ein Lied und ein Spiel und ein Tanz dabei. Wir freuen sich an.
I find people who are bilingual, trilingual really fascinating, basically because I'm not, and that process of flipping into a different language in terms of thought process as well. Is that kind of easier when it's a musical process to switch between languages and in terms of how you're actually feeling and thinking?
So with cultures and choosing which language I write in is usually to do with what I want to express. And if I want to express something that sits really comfortably within the Jewish culture, within the Yiddish culture, I'll probably go for that language. So there are subjects that are common for both Russian and Yiddish culture, for example, like separation, love, all these things, pan-human things, but they expressed differently. In Russian culture, you tend to go really openly emotional and really shout into the field about your pain. And in Yiddish culture, you would go really introverted and really kind of suffer kind of quietly, and not even the voice production would be different, and also all these musical ornaments and stylistic details. So depending on how I want to be that particular moment, I guess I go for a specific culture.
It's just really interesting, the sort of the different expressions of melancholy, I suppose, how those physically manifest in different languages. What struck me when we were talking in our group conversation previously was that actually how much which I hadn't considered about you before, how much of a storyteller you are, how many different stories you weave through all of your work. And I kind of wondered how do you, because I think this has implications for museum work as well, actually, like which are the stories that we choose to tell, and whose voices are we kind of enacting or hearing through that? Do you have is that a very clear decision-making process for you, or is it much more to do with the music itself?
So in terms of stories, there's obviously a lot of choice. And because music is so rich, and both Russian and Yiddish musics are so rich, I can choose, but I wouldn't be able to make decisions every single time I choose a song or I perform a concert. I've made my decisions maybe earlier in my life, when I was kind of deciding what I was doing in this life at all. What am I living for? What do I want to play music for? What do I want to say in my music? And I've decided what I wanted to say. I want to bring light and kindness to the world. I want to connect people. I want to help myself open my mind to the other and help others to open their minds to whoever is around us. I like the feeling of embracing ourselves, embracing whatever comes into our life, people and events and whatever. I like a bit of fighting for the right thing, coming from Russia and with all these revolutionary songs we sang in school. I like to talk about deep feelings, deep emotions of each person, each individual, and exploring maybe spiritualism in culture. So I go for these stories, I guess.
So it's really interesting when you said, that allowing the other to be heard or to be expressed somehow. And I think that is something that, I think about a lot in my own practice. But that there is, within the very specificity of another, there is that universality that people make connections are actually not quite as different as we thought we were in the first place.
Anecdote that I was told by an academic about in Baghdad, on the Thursday night, in the coffee houses, you'd often get a cantor, a Hazan, sitting down with a sheikh, like or an imam, and discussing the maqam that they would use on the Friday that would be coming out of the mosque. The muezzin would be singing, and that also would be heard in the synagogue. So they would come and coordinate.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah,
that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
in the way that the culture's connected, and I don't know, I feel somehow like we've become societally a bit afraid of that, and that this digital age is creating even more of that, even though these kind of conversations are happening everywhere, and that's incredible. That many things are happening now that could never happen before because of things like Zoom and us all being available at various times we wouldn't normally be free. But I also feel that there's the normalization of like screen culture and sort of digital like dominance within what's being fed to us is worrying. And I hope that all of this can be used for the growth and like intercultural growth and all of that as much as possible.
I don't know if you find that when you're bringing your choirs together.
Oh, it's a big subject, really. And I've thought about it yesterday. Of certain events, certain events are happening right now. And besides that, I'm involved in a project where we have 14 people making a CD compilation, and they're so individual. Everyone is a performer, with their own ideology, with their own history. And we're trying to find common ground, and it's so difficult. And as like an election in our group, what we want to go for. And I think I'm losing. But in the time, I'm thinking, my aesthetical values are not accepted, but I want our group, my primary value is for the group to exist.
Yeah.
So I will sacrifice my aesthetic values for the common good. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we always need to bear in mind.
Mm-hmm. But on that note, Polina, I have to say, I think that you have so much to offer artistically, and don't take this in the wrong way, but I often feel that your aesthetic is overlooked, and it shouldn't be. As in, maybe you're too accommodating because of your belief system, which I really appreciate you sharing, and I'm really enjoying becoming more aware of that about you. But sometimes I think I could be wrong here, but I wonder if you choose to step aside because there are many egos or many desires, and it's really hard to negotiate and collaborate with lots of people with lots of ideas. But honestly, I feel that you have so much to offer, and your voice is so developed and unique. And I think I'm only realizing that these days, as you start to release and kind of run your own creative projects, rather than kind of being an accompanist to others, perhaps.
Well, I think that sometimes you need to act like water going through stones, and then you achieve more. And when people see that your intentions are, that you are generous and that you're open-minded, right? I need to be open-minded myself in order to teach open-mindedness, because it's all very well saying like, I'm right and you're wrong not to listen to me, but listen, we need to start listening. And I do have very strong, I believe in certain things in music, I believe in certain things in politics. And living in Britain, actually, being Russian and Jewish at the same time, there are so many questions, and there are so many stereotypes, and there are so many things within each group and between these groups, and me being who I am, living in the West and all that. I have to think about it, and I have to be careful and very, very clear, very clear.
Mm-hmm. Do you find you're often misunderstood or pigeonholed? Or...
No, I think I can be, if there is such a word, underunderstood. So, it's not quite. I express something and people say, oh, just a nice song, when it's not just a nice song. And also with the language is sometimes not being understood, and not being understood deeply. You cannot sometimes translate some fine details of the poetry that I'm using, or I would have, written myself. So people will hear that it's a love song and it's about some kind of nostalgia, but they won't feel that there is a female longing for expression of love, but it's also physical, and it's also a burning desire, but the mouth can be shut and you cannot say things, and all these details that it's just impossible to always deliver.
actually, on that note, let's talk a little bit about. So you've been amazing during lockdown in terms of all of the singing workshops that you've been doing online, and that's how I first came to your work. I came and did one of the Yiddish songs with you, and so there's a difference, I suppose, in terms of understanding, isn't there, between people who are involved in the actual singing, say as part of one of your choirs, for example, and then the audience who are coming to that song. And I just wondered if you could talk about the process within the choir, because I'm assuming, for example, with the Russian choir, that not everybody is Russian or speaks Russian, and not everybody's Jewish. And so is there, as you were talking about those fine details of expression or of translation, is there a deeper understanding in the sort of participation of music making than you could ever hope to achieve for an audience who are just coming to a concert, say?
Yes, you see, with choirs, and in my choirs, in the Yiddish choirs, maybe one or two people in each of my choirs speak Yiddish. Maybe some of them understand a bit, and some people are not Jewish at all. They come just for the music, for learning something about the other culture. And in my Russian choirs, also a minority of people speak Russian or have Russian roots or some kind of connection. So it's educational, and it's that kind of opening up our cultural boundaries. What I find is that in music, you can cut to a deeper place without having to explain the exact context of the song, the exact meaning of every word, even though I try to do that too, by just allowing people, encouraging people, inviting people to feel what that song is about. It's possible to connect on that level, and this is what happens. This is what I love in music. I don't know if I certainly explore myself and life on earth. I don't know, everything. I explore, everything just happens by itself. Every single moment of my relationship with the people I perform with, I teach, brings something new. I learn from them. I learn something about myself. I learn something about the culture I'm teaching. Something comes back from a song. So I would introduce a song and then people would react to it, and that teaches me. And then in that relationship, so many things happen. So it's like total flexibility in all areas of my life, including my Jewish and Russian identity, of course.
Are there ever any sort of subjects within the songs that you have to think twice about introducing to those groups, or that have caused breakdowns of communication or difficulties? Or
Oh yeah, very much so, both in Russian and Yiddish and Jewish. You know that with Russian culture we have lots of traditional man-woman roles of, man and woman, and arranged marriage and all that. So, and we have these pro-Russian songs, so I choose not to go with these very kind of flat songs, but we do come across classical examples, like there is a Tchaikovsky Legend, a beautiful, beautiful choral score that a lot of people sing. And there is it's about Jesus Christ, and it's how Jewish children come into his garden and tear all the roses in his garden.
What?
They destroy his garden, and Christ, instead of making a rose wreath that he thought of originally, he has to make a wreath out of it's called the Crown of Roses in English. It's a known song, and he makes a wreath out of thorns, and there's blood streaming down his face, and it's Jewish children. So we had so much conflict around this, so we changed Jewish into neighbors. And this is a Russian classical example, but imagine with Yiddish culture, Israel always causes trouble. When I teach, one way or another, when I teach Hasidic music, a lot of people are anti-religious, and some are more traditional, and they want to see, say, a drinking song as a highly spiritual song, but it can be both. So finding this common ground, I have actually taken down some of my repertoire because people objected to it too much. I really have to think about it.
Dare I say, hatred of the Hasidim and the Hasidic culture from a lot of Jewish people that I know, and religious Jewish people, and
older Jewish people, rather than being able to celebrate some of the cultural attributes of the society and value those, I just find there's this dismissal. And in the music, you get that a lot in Reform. You know, there's this new wave of composition that's a lot more westernized in terms of settings of prayers and things like that. And the lack of kind of knowledge and desire to learn about some of those other kind of musical and linguistical structures and styles that are attributed to the ultra orthodox. But in the klezmer community, we are able to appreciate and kind of learn some of those traditions through a kind of ethnographic kind of gaze and a kind of cultural, you know, musically interested gaze. And I you know, I absolutely love that, and I find that quite hard to explain to some people because they don't understand, and it does make people uncomfortable. But I feel that we as artists and musicians have to be comfortable with it, or we have to be comfortable with whatever we're offering. So, you know, you must have gone on a journey to decide what aspects of Jewish culture you're comfortable with exploring and how. I just wondered about that journey.
Well, I actually have quite a clear point in my personal history where I had to make certain decisions about being religious. My first boyfriend, when I was 17 years old, he became very religious, and we were exploring Jewish culture together. And I went into music and into singing solo on stage, and he went into being really properly religious. And I don't know which branch of, I think it was Chabad Lubavitch that he went into. You know, Chabad Lubavitch was all over Russia, still is. So I think he just got sucked into that. And I couldn't be with him and sing. So I would have, you know, I would have had to have gone religious, and I couldn't do it. And I remember this last straw when I had to, you know, decide. And he said to me, you can sing behind the screen.
Wow.
You'll have to hide this. And I remember something happening, and I was 17. I had to make this big decision of my life, music or Jewishness in a way. So I thought, okay, by playing Jewish music, by being involved in Jewish culture, I will keep my identity, but I really don't want to be religious.
Yeah, so in the UK, do you feel positive about the Jewish music scene here? Is it kind of, do you feel like it's vibrant and reinventing itself, or
I think I can be positive at times. Sometimes I despair. It just depends on what I come across and what I participate in. And I'm not really that aware of what happens in the rest of Jewish music in the UK. I know a bit of, you know, what Ladino people are doing, what some kind of klezmer people, of course, we all know each other. And occasionally there's a little new project, a new band appearing, doing same old or something new and original. I don't know if sometimes it's not easy to be positive, because again, there's like a big bulk of mainstream familiar stuff that doesn't move anywhere. So, you know, sometimes when I come across some creative project and it promotes itself as the most up-to-date thing, and then they ask me to sing songs that they know, I get sad. I guess like anywhere. I'm sure in museums you have the same. People want to see.
and it's a constant trying to think of ways, you know, that we were talking before about those stories or those voices that we feel like are underrepresented and are really important. It's a constant battle sometimes, isn't it, to think of ways that we can make sure that those get heard within the cacophony of all the mainstream and everything else that's going on.
Well, you know what I think? I think that mainstream is okay. I think that we as humans we want comfort. And that's why there will be always a majority, a vast majority wanting the same, because it's comfort. Mm-hmm. And then if you can squeeze something new, like 2% of something new into a concept, that's good enough. That's good enough. It's only natural. People want familiar stuff.
But it's a really different way in than it's a really different way into your professional path than coming in as someone who sort of defines themselves as a solo artist whose remit is kind of everything's evolving around them. In a way, I feel that what you're constantly doing is sharing and looking outward even though your personal output is really large, like you've released so many albums and you've done settings to so many tunes and you've got many projects and you've really built this choir movement from nothing, you know, it's so impressive. And actually, but you're sort of doing it to give. It feels like it's a gift. It doesn't feel that I don't feel that you demand the focus to be on you.
Well, it would be stupid.
Refreshing.
It's not about me. It's not about me. I actually don't feel that it's me. I feel like I'm being a kind of a vessel. I transmit something that is hopefully bigger than me. And at the moment I start thinking about me being in the center, as me as a person, without my desire to bring things together, to bring people together, then I lose it. It's not worth it, really. It doesn't give back as much.
But
I have a great joy while feeling all that, you know, people connecting and singing together. It's amazing, that feeling. And then we get the whole audience to join in. It's just the most exciting thing. Actually, it's interesting that this lockdown happened when I was at this project that summarized 2 lines of my work. One is working with choirs and another is composing and singing, performing myself. So I recorded this CD that was supposed to go around the world, and you know, had a big launch party in Boston planned, and then London and Brighton, and then it was a project that brought together my 4 choirs here in the UK, and a Yiddish choir in Boston, 85 people, a beautiful Yiddish choir, Abessere Welt, the Workers' Circle Choir, and Lawrence Klamberg, who is the lead singer of the Klezmatic, the Grammy-winning band. And I love singing with him. We have another project, Slumber in the Shepherds. So it was all these threads coming together. The project is called 150 Voices. Actually, here we go, some promo. As I say, since I moved to the West, I've learned to always sell something. So I'm selling that, 150 voices, literally 150 voices, songs in Russian and in Yiddish, sometimes together, merged together. And that's still going somehow. We are making videos now and we are communicating, but obviously we had to stop. And this project was supposed to go to different towns. We had Dresden and maybe Prague and Kiev planned, that Lauren and I would go and teach choirs, local choirs, and then we would perform that program in a concert. That was like a long weekend project, go to places and do that, a long weekend in each place. Well, that may still happen in future, but because we had to switch from doing, you know, live performances to live online, I've done tons of international Yiddish song stuff and Russian song stuff. I'm carrying on with my Sing With Me project, which invites people from all over the world to just come and sing with me 45 minutes in Russian once a week, and then in Yiddish once a week, and everyone is invited to join. You don't have to be able to sing, whatever. We have people from Hawaii, New Zealand, Iceland, Brazil, Germany, Britain, Russia, Ukraine joining, and there's now a solid group, and they've met online and now it's become a community. So I carry on with that.
Yeah. I like that. That makes me feel better. That's such a nice little, 2% is good enough.
You know what, Polina, I think you could be a great life coach.
Yeah.
You really could.
No, I am.
You are a life coach.
Well, this is what I do. I teach, and I think that I don't, as I said, we don't have to say we're radical to be radical. Actually, it's quite the opposite. So as soon as I declare myself a life coach, I lose it.
Yeah.
I just know where I stand with my music. I do have certain ideals, and if people join me in that, then I feel happy. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I should be teaching people, but I can share what I know and what I understand. And if somebody is interested, fine, good.
Keiner weiß es nicht, a viele du allein, als wenn einsamen mit mir die Schoen stille. Dann fier ich mit die Fingerspitzen über meine Welt.